All right, hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club. I'm your host this evening, Tobias Verblinger, and I have a number of curious and exciting topics to share with you. As attendees of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club, you are now all members, provided you adhere to our philosophy. Ex curiositas scientia. We pledge to learn without prejudice in pursuit of our mutual goal, perpetual noviceship. We admit that it is impossible to know everything about anything, and thus we remain perpetually curious and perpetually novice. This is our flag and our mascot, Franklin. The lightning bolt represents the receipt of knowledge, the enlightenment of illumination, the resonance of truths understood. It awakens and excites us and makes us hungry for more. And now let's give a warm Curiosity Club welcome to Jenny Glass and Antoine Thomas of the Rosewood Initiative.
I'm Jenny, and that's Antoine, in case you didn't know. So, I work for the Rosewood Initiative. I'm the executive director. We're a really small nonprofit that just got started within the last couple of years, doing community development work out in East Portland, around 162nd and Stark. So it's kind of hard to really summarize what we do in one tagline, but basically it's overall kind of neighborhood revitalization and community development work. I'm the only employee, and so I work with hundreds of people in the neighborhood and partner organizations. So we're a really small nonprofit, but our partners span across 2 cities, across the county, across the state, and there's no way that I could stand up here by myself and talk about the work that Rosewood does. And so I brought my really good friend Antoine with me today, and we've known each other for about a year, and he's a Rosewood community member and just amazingly talented artist, and he's a muralist that helped us put up a mural in the Rosewood community this summer. And so I wanted to start by letting Antoine kind of share his perspective on Rosewood and his work with us.
Hello everybody, Antoine, as he been introduced. So I was just gonna give a little presentation of what this experience really meant and stuff, and what this whole designing with community strengths means. So I believe designing with community strengths is the name of a new format of approaches to effectively take, not so much a script, but more of a way to channel messages of change effectively in a community whose number of members are many and plenty of work to reach out to, counting the partnerships that have formed around a community seeking change. We need as extra hands to help not build around as barriers, but build up in strengths and friendships, but with a change of where and what the strength is built up of. Now, when you hear the word change, it can be vague or ambiguous, but meaningful, positive change, which uses the community's people's talents, skills, ideas, but not only members, but contributing also the skills and talents and ideas of the partnerships that we have had in this community, not with the perspective of scarcity, but changing with a shift of perspective into looking at the abundance of this community has, not what is needed. I think that's what makes it so radical, because of the boldness and determination to shift our perspective out of the norms of society and what is believed on how to go about changing a community. Now in Rosewood, it is said the journey started with innovative policing, but who's to say that these in the badge do the policing alone? Yes, they have authority, but they have not all respects of all people, neither do we. But yet, us as everyone together working can be an authority and police for our communities to transition towards change, and we show that and tell that and are that by using our talents, ideas, and skills to make that move efficiently and effectively. I do believe, yes, changing it completely would be great, but let's be realistic about the wheat and the tares. Yet we let both grow together into the harvest, and in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in buildings to burn them up. But gather the wheat into the barn, but we're not going, Yeah. So it's something new, but so that so. But we're not going into the streets burning up people. You know what I'm saying? That's not our whole idea off of that analogy of the wheat and the tares. We're not going to do that to those who we think and may be the tares, you know what I'm saying, in the community. We'll let time tell if they're the tares. Because if they are, then they'll be the ones who will burn out themselves. You know what I'm saying? So our whole idea is about, working within the strengths that we have, that whole abundance that we got. We actually got skills and ideas that are worth a lot and that could contribute a lot to this community. So that's what I believe that the whole title, Building with Community Strengths, is. So that's my presentation.
He's pretty amazing to work with, if you can't tell. So I'm going to bring it back to the textbook. Everything that we do is based in theory called asset-based community development. So like Antoine was just saying, we don't do the work at 162nd and Stark and look at this community and say, these are the poorest people in town, this is the most crime-ridden neighborhood. We look at the community and say, what do we have? What resources, what assets do we have here that we can work on, that we can work off of and build up from? And also in this work, I'm constantly asking myself as the director of this organization, is this my idea? Is this what my values I'm imposing on this neighborhood? Because it's not my neighborhood, I don't live there. Or do people really want any of this? Are the people that are living in this community really driving the change, and am I there to facilitate that with them? So some of the guiding principles that we work by to make things happen in the neighborhood, like Antoine's mural, we just talk, we build relationships within the community and then within our partners, and build those bridges to make different things happen. So we're constantly talking and listening to each other. When I first started working in the Rosewood neighborhood, about 2 years ago now, nothing happened for like 6 months. All I did was interview people. Not even interview, like sit down for coffee and really learn about the neighborhood, about the rhythm of the neighborhood and who was there, what people were motivated to do, how people felt about the neighborhood in general. But really asking the people that I was talking to think about themselves as leaders, as citizens, and not as recipients of services. There are a lot of people in the neighborhood that are on government assistance programs. We have a lot of Section 8 housing and other kinds of government assistance housing programs, and a pretty high number of people in the neighborhood that are on parole and probation and getting in recovery and in drug treatment at the methadone clinic. So we have a lot of challenges, and it's easy to look at the neighborhood and the people in it and say, what does this neighborhood need? But every day we're asking people to step up and to use their own talents and skills, but also their own concerns, whatever is going to motivate them to become active participants in their own lives, their families, and their communities. So that's kind of the principles that we built this organization off of. So designing with community strengths. When I first started working out in Rosewood, I just was kind of blown away that part of Portland looked like this. Like, it's very suburban. There are huge parking lots and huge vacant lots, and the avenues are 4 lanes with a turning lane, with bike lanes, and the cars are going 40 miles an hour, and the
It's very busy.
very trafficky. But there are huge apartment complexes full of people. So it's actually a super dense neighborhood. It's like just as dense as downtown. But at the same time, you have these vacant lots and these spaces that are really not conducive for people building healthy relationships within the neighborhood. it's not a very walkable environment. It's not a type of environment where people can just sort of run into each other and build trust. And there's a lot of like, I'm gonna go into my apartment and shut the door because my neighbors are all crazy. And there's a lot of that. So it was really interesting to do this type of work in an environment where nobody wanted to know each other. Nobody even wanted to know each other. And it was because of all of these sort of myths about what was happening in the neighborhood and what was going on, because no one was really talking to each other. But then when I dug a little deeper, it wasn't that extreme. But I started asking people questions like, what do you like about your neighborhood? Or what would you like to do in your neighborhood? And people would say like, oh, I'm only here because I have to live here, and as soon as I can leave, I'm out. And that's a really hard place to do community development work in, because if you want to make improvements, somebody has to be behind those improvements, and you have to have people leading that. It's a constant challenge, but one of the things that we did, we worked with partners on building a community garden in this giant field. This is kind of an interesting picture. You can see how this field is used on a daily basis. This apartment probably has like, I don't even know, like 100 kids that live there. Tons of kids. And they all use this field. Their school is right here in the picture, so they all use this field to get to the school every day, and they've created this little path through the field. And we started working with partners, and through all these interviews and conversations, people have had ideas for years about how to reuse spaces. And one of the things was the church that owns this lot. I mean, they've had it for so long, they've done absolutely nothing with it. They mow it. So you go out there and there's like needles and just, you find so much crazy stuff out there. So, but they had talked about doing community gardens, and so had some of the residents from the local apartments. So we started having these conversations and saying, you know, we could actually do that, not just talk about it. And it's going to require work, and it's going to require commitment from you guys to actually do this. But we can help, you know, we can help facilitate. So a lot of what I do is not the actual digging or the actual, but it's the connecting. It's saying, this is a concern or a talent in the neighborhood. This is the resource that we're going to use to make your idea, your talent flourish, to make this a better community. So a little bit about the area. I don't know, have you guys ever been out to 162nd and Stark? Maybe, no? So like I was saying, it's really dense. There's about 5,300 people that live from, the boundaries that we have are about 157th Avenue to 165th, and then Holiday in the north and Alder in the south. So the center point is the 162nd Max station. And it's just kind of like a walkable distance around there. There are tons of apartment complexes, so there's about 5,300 people that live out there. It's considerably more diverse than Portland in general. It's 53% white compared to, so you see how I threw this together today. Portland itself is 72% white, and Gresham is 69%. So we have in Rosewood a higher Hispanic and Black African American population, but actually a lower Asian population, which is interesting to me because I feel like I see Asians all the time. So it's considerably more diverse. So with that, we also have, like just outside of Rosewood, we have plenty of Russians, Ukrainians, Vietnamese. So this is taking a very small chunk, and that's just for taking stats. But it does feel very diverse out there compared to being in some areas of Portland. So that brings with it a great amount of beauty in and of itself, but it also brings issues with language barriers, with cultural barriers, with ideas that people have about each other that just are, they haven't been exposed to other people to realize that these things are a little bit ridiculous. So that's something that we are trying to do together, is just create these situations where people are getting to know one another as people. So it's not, we don't have a focus, we don't have an outreach program that focuses on Native Americans or anything like that. It's everybody that's living in this community is treated as an equal. So every single person is invited to be a part of the Rosewood initiative and everything that we do. As I was saying earlier too, it's a very low income area. It's about 10,000, the median household income is about 10,000 less than Portland and Gresham's average. The amount of kids that are in Rosewood is nuts. There's a lot of kids. It's so wild. So under 18, we have 32% of Rosewood is under 18. And you can feel that out there. Like, it's just, there's kids everywhere all the time. This summer has actually been really challenging to keep the kids engaged with positive things, positive activities. There's not a lot going on in that area, so they have to leave to go do something somewhere else. And then there's Max Fair, and there's, you know, all those issues. So we do have gang outreach workers that come out to the neighborhood now, and hi, Will. So I got distracted. That's one of my really good friends. So we are trying to do more to bring youth activities into the neighborhood and to have people plan things. Have people like Antoine. We just started this hip hop project that we're starting this month. With the Morpheus Youth Project. So we're getting more things for youth, but you can just feel it. You go out there and the amount of babies, just crazy. Under 5, we have 12% of Rosewood is under 5 years old. Like you walk around and there's strollers everywhere, and it's just like people are so far from services and resources because these are very low income families, and they're at 162nd and Stark. 162 blocks from downtown Portland, where most of the services are located for low-income people, and another however many blocks it is to Gresham, where those services are. So it's a challenge. The design of the area, I think, really affects the quality of life and the ability for people to have a good quality of life when they're living in a low-income situation. So Antoine, in his little spiel earlier, mentioned this started as a community policing project, and I haven't hit on that yet, but it did. It was started by 2 police officers, one in Portland and one in Gresham, and they decided to start working in this area because it's the highest crime area in the Portland metro region. I don't have anything to compare this to, so it's sort of a floating statistic, but police responded to 7,000 calls for service in 2011 in this area, in that tiny area that I just described, and made 583 arrests in 1 year. So we don't have anything to compare that to because we're not really sure what would make sense to compare that to, because we have a max stop, we have 5,300 people in apartments, we have a methadone clinic, a lot of fun stuff we have. So it's sort of difficult to do a meaningful comparison because it really has to be a comparison to somewhere with a max stop, because that's just such a big issue. But it's interesting to look at those numbers anyway and think about what that means for a community to have police presence constantly, and to constantly hear sirens, and to constantly hear fights in the neighborhood. So most of these calls, 1,300 crimes were reported. The most common were larceny, simple assault, domestic problems, and disorderly conduct. So this isn't really like car prowls, stuff that happens kind of in healthier neighborhoods. It's there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of disturbances, and for all the children growing up in this neighborhood, it's really chaotic. So the 2 police officers that started this were just arresting people over and over and over, getting calls and making all these arrests, and nothing was changing. And it had been a problem for so long, they were like, let's try something different. So they started working together. So what I didn't explain is that 162nd is the divide between Portland and Gresham. I forget what my next slide is, I just start talking. So 162nd is the line between Portland and Gresham. So it's a difficult area to police anyway because their jurisdictions both end. So when you're having trouble in an area as a police officer, it might be easy just to be like, there you go, Portland. There you go, Gresham. And that's what was going on for like years. And nobody knew what to do. So these two police officers got together and they were like, what do we do? So they started working with apartment managers in the area, meeting with them, talking with them, hearing their concerns, letting them know what their resources were, how to deal with problems, and also allowing them to start building relationships with one another so that there's this support network within the neighborhood. So that, you know, somebody can call and say like, hey, I have this weird car in front of my house, I think, you know, something's going on, or, you know, have you seen this guy? Those kinds of things are really important for a community as they're beginning to heal and to feel that sense of self-efficacy that they can make a change in their neighborhood. So that idea, that monthly apartment manager meeting and that community policing relationship is what I came into. So 2 years ago, I got a job as a AmeriCorps community organizer in the neighborhood, and they just plopped me down and they said, do asset-based community development here for 1 year. It's kind of crazy. So I found out about the Rosewood Initiative and their ideas for doing this type of work in the neighborhood, and I was like, hey, that's a great idea. I don't think it's gonna work. The people in this neighborhood hate police. Like, hate police. So let's tone it down on the police-driven aspect, and let's make this a community organization. And let's invite the community to lead it and have the police as partners. The police need to be in that neighborhood. People still complain about the police all the time. Still gonna happen. But I don't think there's a single person in that neighborhood that would say that they don't need to be there.
Right.
So what I did was I kind of joined the board of Rosewood Initiative and opened up these monthly apartment manager meetings to everybody in the community and started inviting residents and business managers and owners, just everybody who had a stake in the community. So this is a picture of one of our community meetings inside of Rosewood Cafe. So Rosewood Cafe is our community space that we do all this work out of. It's really important in a place that has no meeting, no center, to have space for people to be able to get to know one another and to exchange ideas and to work on mural projects and have youth night and everything that we do in a shell of a space. It still looks like this. We just got money to build it out, but we still function out of pretty much that space. It looks a little bit better than that. So we hold these monthly meetings, and it's just been really amazing to see what has kind of organically happened out of these partnerships forming. We have done so much stuff. Events and activities, but also ongoing things like youth night, and bringing in the partnership with the gang outreach workers has been huge. So bringing them in and having their presence in the neighborhood to engage with kids. But the most powerful, most visible and symbolic thing we've done to date, for sure, is the mural that we painted this summer with Antoine. And it was just such a magical, amazing experience. And that's why Antoine's here today. I mean, he's been working with us for a year and for a whole year.
I got to see it go through its transitions. It's amazing. It's been very amazing. I mean, like, this is the biggest event that happened so far, but like, I mean, some of the amazing things that I've seen is just like the little barbecues that they've had in order to bring some of the people in the community together. And then you had like, we had a rummage sale, you know what I'm saying? Like how they have that cliche phrase, you know what I'm saying? And a man's trash is another man's treasure. It's true. It's true. Like a lot of people came in and out that rummage sale and got the things that they needed, that they wanted. You know, it just seemed like, you know, how much money made. It's like, that's crazy, you know what I'm saying? People really appreciate these things. And just like, you know, I think that has been the kind of void in between that, in that community, is those people not knowing one another and knowing these skills and ideas that these people have in order to make a better community. Because I'm pretty sure I've seen it. You know, I have friends who live within that community and stuff, and seen the things that go on around it. It's like, man, these are people's neighbors and stuff who live amongst each other that are like going to jail, fighting amongst each other and stuff. It's like, man, you guys need to start, you know, you guys need to get to know each other, man. Because I've had conversations with some of these people who people would think would be bad. Like, man, you got some bright minds, you know what I'm saying? Why don't you guys come together and doing that? So with the Rosewood being there, you know what I'm saying, has given people a way to escape and do those things, you know. And there's something that she said, but I got off track for a minute. I'll come back to it though.
I was just gonna start talking about the mural project, but something that we spend a lot of time together. Something that you just said. So another really interesting dynamic of this community is Antoine just said he has friends that live there, right? So technically you don't live there either.
Yeah, I don't.
But it's so crazy transient. Like new people all the time. The apartments just turn over. It's like your mind spins. It's like the first of the month and everybody's new. I'm like, who are these people? I have been in the same spot and it just keeps changing. Like every month, changing. People's situations are so unstable that they're moving all the time. So it's interesting to also do that type of work when you really need people to be consistent and to stick to a project. You know, a year ago when we met Antoine, he wasn't living in that community, but he was sometimes staying with friends in that community. And so, you know, it's like, who is a resident, who is a member of this community? That line is always blurry. And we consider anyone that has a stake and has an investment in this community in whatever way to be a member of that community, even if they're not physically in the geography of that area. You want to tell the mural story?
Oh yeah, mural story. How you want to do it?
I'll start now. So, a couple of conversations that I had when I was first starting this was with the manager of the gas station at 76 on 162nd Stark, and the manager of a restaurant that overlooked his back wall of his building. They both had talked to each other about doing a mural on this wall, and they're like, yeah, we should do that someday. I was like, why don't you guys just do it? Like, let's make it happen. They're like, well, okay, but we don't know anyone, and we're too busy, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, that's why I'm here. So let's find an artist. So that's the first thing, right? So I just started asking people in the neighborhood. I was like, do you make art? Do you know anyone that makes art? Do you know muralists? Do you tag? Do you whatever? You know, and it comes up in conversations when you're talking to people. All the time.
And like one of those people happened to be one of my friends who lived down there in that community. His name is Rich. So he just came. So he comes to me one day. He's like, "Hey man," he's like, "So you still doing art, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still drawing." He's like, "Yo, there's this chick that I was talking to. You probably seen her. She's tall, got light yellow hair and stuff. I mean, you can't miss her. You know, she's around." I was like, "No, I haven't seen this lady." She's like, "Well, you should talk to her because she was looking for some artists to do an art piece on the wall and stuff." I was like, "All right, then Rich," you know, I was kind of giving it a little consideration.
Rich is kind of a bullshitter.
Rich is.
So Antoine took this as a grain of salt.
And so that was kind of in the back of my mind, like, yeah, Rich, all right, you know. And so I mean, it was in the back of my mind. I seen her one day, except from that day, and she was in the flower pot. And I'm like, oh, that must be the lady. So I'm walking, I'm like, hey. I said, I think you're the lady that my friend was telling me about. You're looking for an artist to do a mural? And she's like, oh yeah. I mean, she has like just this energetic spirit for real. Like it was just, man, I'm like, whoa. It must be you. She's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I am. She's like, you're an artist? Yeah, I'm an artist. So she was like, well, you got any stuff with you that you could bring on by? I'm like, I don't have it on with me, but I do have some around. She was like, well, at 2 o'clock, me and the board of the Rosewood Initiative are going to meet, and you can bring it by. I was like, okay, sounds good. So, that day I go. At 2 o'clock, I bring and present some of my art pieces, and then people's expressions just like.
Do you have the duct tape piece with you?
I don't have the duct tape
Okay.
piece with me. I do have that piece, that little
The new
piece
one?
that, yeah. I have a new piece that I did
Okay.
recently today, yeah. And you guys can probably pass it around and just look at it and stuff. But yeah, that's basically how I found out about just like, what Rosewood was doing, things like that. After that day, like me and Jenny, we just stayed, with our connections, and I mean, now we're here from a year later, doing this mural. I never would have ever imagined that I'd be doing a mural, Like I always thought I was gonna be doing some T-shirts or something, But I'll leave it up to my man over back there to do it. He's doing a good job at it. But yeah, it's just been a very excellent experience, and especially just seeing how it brought just all these, just everybody within that community together. People from across the street who live. You guys can pass this around so if they look at one of the newer pieces, but. Just like, cause it's kind of like crazy. It's like, you got these apartments that's on the side of Rosewood and these apartments across the street, and they're kind of like, they kind of bump heads and stuff, cause they all kick it over at this Sam's or whatever and things like that. But, seeing that they all appreciate, art and what it means for their kids, and then seeing that seeing them all come together, it's like, man, this is what it all means. That's what we're all about. Building with community, designing with community strengths. That's exactly like why we're connecting with the Morpheus Youth Project. Keeping that inspiration going. So people can always just have something to where they can get in tune to. To leave with something like, man, so I really did something with my dad. I didn't have to worry about getting in the fight with this guy over here. Next door about some other crap, and, I could come after school and have something to do, recreational. So that's exactly, it's been amazing with the things that we've done thus far. I'm honored, liberated just to be a part of it all. Never imagined this. How do you describe all this excitement? How do you really do that? Can't explain it all. Like how you said within the beginning. Can't really explain everything, the whole gist and the logistics of it all. So, with this bits and parts, man, it does well. So, I'm honored with you guys having me here and just to be here.
I call this work magic a lot because I never know where it's going. Like, you never, ever, ever know what my day is going to be like, what the month is going to look like, what we're going to accomplish. With this mural, it was, we brought together, like this is describing 4 generations. That's Antoine with his grandpa up there, by the way, on the right. Tons of people from the community that helped design it, helped paint it, came to the mural celebration. We had elected officials and people from the Mayor's Office of Youth Violence Prevention, and from the state. We have been working with a producer that is possibly going to put us on national radio. So it's magic. People hear about this and get involved and want to support people like Antoine that are doing it themselves and that are asking for partners and not asking for somebody to do it for them. So I think that's it. And then I want to show you guys this really cool video. So this is another really amazing connection is our friend Dave Schrank. I don't even remember how we know him. Oh, he does. This is really funny, actually. He does a chili feed on 162nd and Stark every Friday night as part of his church group. It's non-religious, but they're out there every Friday night from like, I don't know, like 7 to 9 or something like that. Every single Friday night for like the last 2 years. So it turns out he's a videographer, and he came and was like, hey, if you guys ever want to do any kind of video, let me know, I'll help you out. And then he had met Antoine, and we were talking about the mural, and he was like, let me know when you guys do that, I want to do time lapse of the mural. And he did. And it's amazing, so we're gonna watch it. And it has this song. That's our player piano. It's a little rusty. It was hot. It was like 100 degrees out when we did this. A little rusty. Yeah. I hear this song 80 times a week at least.
So it's on the player piano.
Uh-huh. We have other roles. Nobody wants to hear any other music.
So defeated.
Well, I did the style of it all, as you see, like in that picture and stuff. That's what they wanted, and so we combined that with also just bringing this community, this message of community. And so partnering up with Addie Boswell, she's a freelance artist around the Portland metro
Yeah,
area.
this is her right here. She was our, because Antoine's never done a mural before, so we had a mentor artist. So I don't know what time it is, but if you guys have questions. Yeah?
I got two questions. They feed into one another. One is, do you find that it's really tough for people who maybe, because it sounds like there's a lot of negative image for cops in that area to some people. Do you find that people sometimes want to actually get involved with that, but that maybe there's a potential of like, am I going to get in trouble with the cops if they have a previous history, A, or B, am I going to get in trouble with people, like, it's hard for them hang out with a group of people that maybe don't like the cops and then they want to do
Yep.
something that the cops are involved in, but it's hard for them because they don't want to get backlash from their friends and peers.
Both, and I think Antoine's the perfect person to answer that question.
Yeah, like she said, it's a little bit of both, and it'd be a little bit better if people would kind of have that in mind and would ask that, you know, because we want people in that community to be a part of this as much as possible, because they're the ones who actually can also help a lot in making the change, because they know a lot of people within that vicinity. And so, but yeah, it does bring up a barrier with that, you know, just that mindset of the cops and their reputation and stuff. It's like, you know, because with me working with Jenny for a minute, their stories like, oh, he's working with the cops, like, and that's kind of hard, you know. And it took some people to actually come to get to know Jenny what it's all about. It's like, oh, no, you guys are working with the cops in order to kind of to make a betterness in this community and build it up, you know. So like, yeah, that's been a big issue. A lot of people would think that she's a cop.
People still ask me, I thought you were police.
So it's crazy. So yeah, both of that.
But it takes time, you know, trust takes time, and, you know, some people are more ready to start that process than other people, but, I think all the events that we have where police are just kind of there and they're present, they're a part of the community, really helps people understand, like, they're real people. And that's kind of also the theory behind this too, is helping not only community members see cops as people, but cops see community members as people. It's really interesting how that culture exists on both sides, and seeing that being like smack in the middle of it is really frustrating and really difficult, but really rewarding when you see the change, like see that culture change happen in one single person. You can see the shift. It's cool.
Yeah, the question back there.
I got two questions. First question is 12% population is 5 and younger, is that what you said? 5 and younger.
So babies.
What
Over.
are the resources in that community for single parents or even just regular parents that have kids? I mean, 12%, that's pretty high.
It's really high.
Yeah.
Not a lot. There is a Center for Family Success over in Gresham, and their Human Solutions just built a new building at 181st, and they do parenting classes and stuff like that. There's some food banks in the neighborhood. There's Snowcap up the street. That stuff is starting to come out to East Portland and closer to where people are living now because of the demographic shift from inner Portland as we've improved in our neighborhoods. We have pushed people into the outer neighborhoods, just a fact, and that is where it's more affordable to live now, and so we have communities of all colors and kinds, but a lot of low-income families that are you know, in need of those services that are mostly located still in inner Portland.
So they're going to be building more things like CMAR, things like that, towards the road.
It's starting to happen already, and that's something that we always advocate for too. So Rosewood, the cafe as a site will be a place for people to, like a satellite kind of office. We already have different organizations using our space to meet with people, to have meetings, but also to do outreach. Like Urban League of Portland, I am white, right? Urban League of Portland called me and said, how do we meet black people in East Portland? I was like,
Really?
oh my God. Come out, hang out, 162nd, let's go for a walk and talk to people. It's like,
Second question is, how do I get involved? I've done a mural before. It's more graffiti inspired, but I do have experience and I love to draw. So how do I get involved in anything if possible?
tomorrow, do you want to invite him to tomorrow's meeting?
Yeah, tomorrow's meeting we're having with the Guerrilla Youth.
Morpheus.
We have the Morpheus Youth Project.
I like that one too.
But yeah, we're having a meeting tomorrow, and that's basically kind of what we're trying to take is that type of genre of graffiti and b-boy dancing, and we're just trying to get all that stuff done. So like tomorrow will be a great meeting for you to come to because I think you could get more information from Carlos who runs that.
Okay.
And I believe that'd be great because there's actually another cat who works with Carlos who actually does graffiti type murals and canvases and stuff. And there's a lot of youth within that area who do graffiti, this type style drawing. So I think that'd be a great outlet for them
Yeah,
to
you need to use that towards positive because I was a kid that tagged when I was 15, 16, and you get a rush out of it, but what happens when the rush ends is most likely there's a cop in front of you, and then you gotta deal with consequences. So the talent is there, you just have to use it towards a positive,
Yeah.
Right.
you know?
So what we're putting together is sort of, we have some big ideas, like Hip Hop Collective. We're gonna throw right now a monthly hip hop kind of workshop, and we're gonna have DJs there giving lessons, MCs doing kind of lyrical work, and b-boys and girls and graffiti art going on while we're making music. We'll see what happens. It's always an adventure. But yeah, if you want to come, we have a planning meeting for that tomorrow at 6 o'clock at Rosewood.
Have you ever, I mean, have you ever had an idea of like Habitat for Humanity to come into that area? Because if you have huge.
We have Habitat for Humanity is building a couple developments really close by Rosewood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that really would break up some of the apartment living, and it tends to make a lot of people feel better when they move into a house that they can call their home.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've noticed that a lot.
Home ownership is important for stability in neighborhoods. Yeah. What's interesting about the kind of design and the layout too of the neighborhood is that all of the multifamily housing properties are located like right on the main strips. So Stark is all apartment complexes. 162nd, all apartment complexes. You go one street away, and it's like suburbia, ranch-style houses, big yards, white homeowners. Bizarre. All living like right next to each other. So that creates an interesting dynamic too.
And that day specifically doesn't have to be the only day that you could come and be a part of it. You know, you could come on Wednesdays and stuff when we have our youth night. You come down there and share what you do, stuff with them. I mean, Jenny's pretty much in the office sometimes throughout the whole week, depending on how her schedule is.
Pretty much always sometimes.
So, but, I mean, it's, you know, like, I mean, if you can get down there, you know, while it's open stuff, it's helpful, you know, because we do try to get there and just try to come up with more ideas and plans of how we could be inspirational to that community, make that change. So, thanks you for you guys' questions.
I got one more. So you guys, like, we're talking about, like, how, and I didn't observe it when I was a kid, but how neighborhoods really changed in Portland, and people got really distributed all over the place. And so with, like, Rosewood, do you find, are there specific neighborhoods that people come to Rosewood from, and maybe even as they transition that they go to, and if there's like any ones that you're like,
Yeah.
Coming from, I know about transition to the aesthetics. I
You
know,
want to talk about the come from?
I know that, well, coming from a lot of the people who come into Rosewood are like right next door or across the street from the community space. So, you know, that's where you see a lot of them coming from. I mean, it's just like you said, it's like right smack dab in the middle, like just right on Stark and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, it's not too hard to miss, you know.
I think also Will was talking about like people that are moving into Rosewood. Like what neighborhoods are they coming from?
like I know a lot of times, like a lot of people who used to live in North Portland ended up out in 82nd when I was a kid, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
now from 82nd.
There's definitely a connection to Northeast Portland.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't deny that when you're out there.
And a lot of people too are coming from just the downtown area who haven't had any like benefits, and are getting benefits, and are getting helped out with housing that come
Yeah.
up within that area too.
It's actually pretty incredible. I take the Max every day, and when I'm down here, I see some of the same people on the street that I see in Rosewood on the street. It's sort of downtown kind of Chinatown vibes sometimes, like the amount of drugs, the amount of street traffic, street drinking, just overall like you know when you're walking around Chinatown, you know when you see a prostitute. You know when you're walking around Rosewood, there's a prostitute. Okay. Yeah. So downtown connection for sure too.
Are is more difficult for you in trying to improve conditions?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. So you have the bar at Sam's, that's like right next door to the Rosewood initiative. Then you got this gun repair shop that's like right across the street. Like, for real, right across the street.
You can't make this up. It's so crazy.
It is crazy. And then like a little ways up, I guess down, like not too many blocks, just a block away, there's a strip club, then you got another bar, the Commodore. And then you have over on 122nd, it's just about like what, a right away? No, 102nd, which is 2 rides away from 162nd. There's a liquor store right there. And then above that, on 181st is another liquor store. So you have all these little, these spots that are kind of influencing this type of message, you know what I'm saying, while people are already within that state. And it's like, how am I gonna go and get this edge off throughout the day? You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's not at first like I want a beer. Maybe it's just like I want something to take this edge off. But since it's within the closest vicinity for them to grab, it's like another beer on my tab. And yeah.
I think what's super interesting about how Antoine just answered that question too is the influence of the Max on that community. It's pretty incredible how, you could say Rosewood is at 162nd and Antoine just referred to something on 102nd as in the neighborhood. That's 60 blocks away. Like, I don't know where you guys live, but if you feel like something 60 blocks away from you is your neighborhood, that's how deep the connection is to the Max. Because you probably don't have a car if you're taking the Max every day. And so hopping on the Max and going 2 or 3 stops is, it's still your community because it's still just right off the Max and it's accessible. Things that are further away from the Max, that's no longer your community. So public transit has a huge effect on people's quality of life, people's ability to do things, So that's one major outside influence, but there's tons.
And it's funny though, like a lot of people, you would have never guessed, like people who live in Portland, Oregon, or within the Gresham area haven't been downtown Portland. There's a lot of people that you can talk to, you know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever been downtown? I'll go down there, man. You know what I'm saying? I'll go down there, man. It's true, they don't go down there.
They've never
Because
been.
once you go down there with one of them, it's like, dang, this was here? This is Portland? Like, this is, yeah. There's a lot of people that do not go down there because of also, within the barriers of the transportation of the Max. A lot of them not having that, the whole bundle with the Max security and things like that. So they don't have this outlet to where they could get away for a minute and be like, oh, I'm in a different scenery for a minute, It's some place that I didn't really even explore, get enough time to explore or even know about, that it's here, So, like she said.
And the kids too, I have so many anecdotes. So we got some free tickets to a Timbers game from Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I went with a friend and we took 2 youth from Rosewood, and then we had a bunch of other kids there too. So we had these 2 youth in the car, and they're like, we're hungry. So they told us where they wanted to eat, which was Taco Bell and McDonald's. And I wasn't ready for a fight about it in that moment. I know these 2 kids really well. So I was like, well, you guys have to compromise. You have to pick one place. We're not driving to 2 separate places before the game. We're already late. And they're like, well, at 122nd, there's a Taco Bell, and then there's a McDonald's on the corner, and then there's a strip club, and then there's a Taco Bell. So we can both go. There's LJ and Elijah. That's LJ. He called it. LJ and Elijah. So they know, like, exactly what's on this corner, right? That's 40 some blocks away from where they live. They know exactly the design of this corner. We start driving downtown, and they're like speechless. They're like, oh, look at that bridge! Oh my God! They had never been downtown. Never ever. But they knew that corner really well. So, pretty amazing. Do you guys have any more questions? We could probably talk forever.
So do you guys so you're involved with all of these different people and police and associations, and you're there all the time, and somebody you see that you know, that you have a personal relationship is doing something, like they're in a fight or they're, I don't know, stealing something, or I don't know, and you're like going, okay, do I call the cops? Do I go out there and be like, hey, Joe, what are you doing? Like, that's gotta happen a lot. And like, do you have like, what do you do? Like, and how do you react in those kind of situations? Yeah.
I actually had a couple pretty scary experiences. One really recently, a fight came inside of our community space, and I was actually in the back hallway, locked in a bathroom, making a phone call to 911, shaking, like hyperventilating. There were people inside Rosewood. We have some metal folding chairs. They had brought their fight inside and were throwing chairs at each other and took glass vases that we had flowers in and threw them against each other. Like one girl got hit in the head. I call the police quite a bit. I generally call 911 3 times a week. And when I feel like my safety, my personal physical safety, or someone else's personal physical safety is in danger, I'm gonna call the police. Like, I do not want to see someone get hurt or killed. Like, I'm not gonna be responsible for that. I called the police in a situation where there was a really large gang fight on the corner of 162nd and Burnside. It was a really interesting experience because I walked by a group of kids that I know, they're the Spring Tree Boys, and I could tell that there was something about to happen. There was just this like feeling, and I stopped to talk to them, and I was like, "What are you guys doing? Like, go home." And they wouldn't look at me in the eye. They wouldn't talk to me. These are kids that I know. I've played ping pong with them. I've hung out with them. And they wouldn't even like recognize that they knew me. And I turned around, and there was a giant group of people that just got off the max, and they instantly started fighting with this other group. And at that point, what are you gonna do? There's 30, 40 people in a gigantic fight, and so I started walking away and dialed 911, and someone heard me and said, "That bitch is calling the police, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh my God." So, actually, it gets even more interesting because somebody else at the corner, this older guy, looks at me and he goes, "Are you calling the police? That's messed up." And I was like, these kids are about to kill themselves. That is not messed up. Like, that is where I will assert my values, and I will say, I am not okay. I am calling the police. I'm not calling on anyone else's behalf but my own. And, as he's saying this to me, I look over and a kid that I know is being beaten over the head with a magazine rack. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna call the police sometimes. And, no, I'm not going to call the police every time I see a prostitute. I'm not going to call the police every time I see a drug deal. I know that some of the people that we work with are using, are dealing, are involved in whatever illegal activity you want to name. But it's not my responsibility to be, that's not what we're about. We're not about this investigation and figuring out the illegal activity that's happening in the neighborhood. It's about asking people in the community to step up and be part of something positive in many different ways. So.
And to comment a little bit more on how she was talking about the older gentleman asking if she was calling the police. Now that's kind of a big thing that's a big barrier within that community, is that you have a lot of these older people who are supposed to be role models or representatives to these youth, but yet they are not. You know, within themselves, they're kind of within this child state mindset. You know, like, oh, like just like that. You know, there's been an altercation that happened over in the Springtree apartments where some of my friends live, and you know, there's this older man who's instigating this. You know, saying fighting between, you know, saying these youth. You know, it's like, why would you put your own family member out there who is a youth amongst these group of boys? You know what I'm saying? Have them fight amongst them. You know, it's just that mindset, you know, that's within there that cripples it, you know, and that's something that is very, like, just like how you say, like, how can I contribute stuff? That's what we need more of, you know. Those boys really need an outlet like that, you know what I'm saying, a role model who has experience within the, you know what I'm saying, doing graffiti and that lifestyle, what it brought, you know, and where you can go with it. They need that, you know, so that they know, hey, I have these options within my life. I don't need to go back to that. You know, I don't need to get in trouble, you know what I'm saying, just to feel a thrill or feel a reward. You know, I could go over here, hook up with homeboy, and we could go do a mural somewhere and get a thrill off of the people coming and appreciate what we're doing in this community. You know, but that is very seldom. And that's why we're having to come outside also of the community and like, we need help here. You know, go here, hey, we need help here. So that these people may come to like the light for being helped. You know, but let's open ourselves up so that we may be helped and receive it. So
Right now.
Do you have any have you sold any of your art like separately? Have you done any shows? Do you have a website? Sorry, I feel like I should get that out there before.
No,
That's just-
like all that is getting started. I'm about to be doing the website and stuff and all that. That's all just brand new stuff that needs to be. So I have sold like art pieces before, not at the Rosewood community space alone, but I am about to make cards and stuff. But to reach me, it'd be better to get a hold of Jenny.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do sell art pieces.
Oh, you're an agent? Oh my god.
I'm around the Rosewood.
Yeah. Thank you so much, you guys, for having me.
Yeah, we should give Antoine and Jenny one more round of applause for coming down. Alright guys, we return on September 18th with Britt Howard and Rosemary Robinson. They own Portland Garment Factory, and their talk is called Journey Through Apparel Design and Manufacturing in the USA. Portland Garment Factory is an independent, lady-owned manufacturing company established in Portland, Oregon in 2008. PGF takes pride in manufacturing quality apparel in the USA using traditional craftsmanship and sustainable business practices. PGF offers new and established brands high-quality construction, pattern drafting, size grading, low minimum line production, material sourcing, technical design, and product design consultation. All right, thanks everyone for coming. That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Hi,
Hey, how are ya?
Good.
Good to see you.
Antoine? We'll do that intro later.
I need your contact.
I want to buy some more.
I know, it's our.
Whatever you got.
I'll get a hold of you.
Yeah, we didn't need to start thinking because he was everything.
So this is-
Sharpie and
The
fake.
preference is
Oh, okay.
So,
we meet up at the Rosewood Cafe, is that?
That's awesome.
he's done such a good work. He
Oh,
brought
sorry,
this stuff
sorry.
in.
Yeah, it's alright.
Oh, it's so good. It's so
Are you
amazing.
kidding me?
A proper marker paper too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You could probably.
Yeah, we got marker paper and markers.
Thanks for coming.
Hey,
Yeah, I had.
It was a great presentation.
I know.
Yeah.
Excited to
Yeah.
You're so talented. That's
Awesome. I kind of want to come out. Is there like a time
You work most days, yeah.
I don't work Mondays.
I usually don't go out there Mondays, but I think
Is there like some kind of thing that I just go out and do? I feel kind of weird at a community meeting doing here, but maybe like some other thing where I can just be like a body.
Okay.
be hanging out.
Yeah, and just
Hi.
Well, like
Do you want to come to the?
And,
Yeah, for
wanted
like
to
construction
share
work stuff.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Sometimes
heck
it's like,
yeah.
what am I gonna do? Like, oh,
Oh,
really
heck
invested
yeah.
in
You're familiar with
this
it?
neighborhood.
No, but people do that all the time because they hear
So my,
like,
good
you know,
friend
they
Claire
hear about it, and
is
that's
the
we
creative director
rely on
there.
that honestly. Like,
And
we
she
rely
would be
on
a great
people
resource for you to chat with and share
sharing
their
their
story
helping out.
and
Yeah,
find
yeah,
out.
I'd rather I just feel more
I think
comfortable
you just
helping
have to
out
get
or
information
something
interview
instead.
Yeah.
and pick her brain because
so
she'll
once we
know
start
all sorts of
construction,
different
I'll let you
facets of
know.
the art world.
Alright.
That you might be interested in. You should talk about but Milepost, I don't know if you know Milepost 5 is.
No.
Oh, you had to lock
It's
yourself in a
a,
bathroom?
live work community with
You didn't tell me about
designers and
this.
artists, and there's a cafe and a gallery, and they have a creative director
Wow.
on site who
Do you have a card
organizes.
or?
I
This is
don't.
right
It's
after
called
I hung out with
Milepost
you.
5. If you Google it, it'll come up. Milepost 5.
Milepost
It's on
5.
82nd and 87th.
How
Or
about
it's
you?
actually on
You hadn't
82nd.
talked about it at all.
Yeah, maybe
Wow.
I didn't tell you what it is.
It's literally like the Milepost 5
Gotcha.
on
There
82nd,
was one
Oh.
which is
of
actually on
those
State
that-
Highway.
Yes,
Let's see
yes.
what I
So-
think I'm doing.
Yeah, and I should. Do you have a card or do you have a?
No, I don't, but I do have.
I'm gonna write this down because I feel like it's something that will be remembered otherwise.
Do you want to come out?
That's one.
Yes.
Wanna come out for this one?
Yes.
Okay. What's your name?
Noel. Nice to meet you.
What?
My brain.
Yeah, I just like, I'm like, you know, there's people that watch
Yeah.
this stuff, and I'm like, man,
I'm just like
I
these
get
guys talking
fucked
about
somehow.
making t-shirts, and I freelance. I'm always drawing. I'm always doing something.
Yeah. We're hoping to have some kind of like graffiti or
Can you have notes on there?
during the hip hop
Can you take notes on that?
Like, so if you wanted to come and like help kind of teach things how to be,
Yeah. No, it'd be fun.
it'd be really, really cool.
Here.
Okay, so A-N-T-O-I-N.
Don't forget the W.
So.
Okay, so where is this meeting tomorrow exactly?
It's at Roseway, so it's at 162nd Street.
And this is the Rosewood Cafe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what time is it from?
It's from, last time we met for 2 hours, like 6 to 8, but I mean, if you wanted to come in and just meet people,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to stay the whole time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing like a meet type of thing, so we'll go out there.
So it's Milepost 5, Claire Willis, the creative director, and Angela Virginia.
So it's sort of tricky to
The
find,
restoration
like,
mission and
just
good luck.
Do you want the address?
I know where Starbucks.
Okay, it's 609 Southeast 162nd. So it's like right in the same, it's in a shopping plaza, like one of those
609 Southeast.
162nd. And it's right next to Sam's Restaurant and Lounge.
Yeah, I'll try to do it a little later. I gotta present some work for my art teacher tomorrow. But then I'll tell her that I have a musical too. And then I'll come out there
Yeah,
and
dude, that'd be
start
awesome.
getting involved with whatever you guys have going on.
Yeah.
We had a lot of like that things in East Oakland where
Is
there's
that where you're from?
no, but I mean I grew up in Richmond, which is actually smaller than East Oakland, and it's higher than the whole crime rate of Los Angeles County, and Los Angeles County is pretty bad.
Yeah.
So again, it's just it's a whole bunch of youth with nothing to do, and
You know, that's
usually how they get their stripes is by doing
Right.
something stupid and then gradually becoming critical. And before you know it, it's too late in the hole. But there's a lot of talent within that same area.
I would love for you to meet, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah.
Perfect.
The bullshit.
No, this group of kids, they're all.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about that one guy. I didn't know he's gonna.
Oh, no, not Rich.
Yeah, I mean, he's great, but,
You might meet him, but hey.
Salvador and Jose and all those guys, they're all like 16 to 19 years old, nothing to do, get in trouble, pseudo gang, they call it PSK, they get in fights, but they like to talk, they really
and stuff that I got over at home. It's little skills, man.
That's good.
Huh?
That's good.
Yeah, and I'm just like, ooh, man.